fear mongering. Twice recently, I have been accused of fear mongering. Cool. I'm good with it. I have touched a nerve, and that means I'm starting to cross into having new listeners who just aren't as familiar with my podcast and also who maybe haven't quite yet realized the full reality of just how broken our maternity system is. And I'm excited about it, y'all. I want to talk about what they had to say because I'm not scared. I'm not scared to tell you why I believe what I believe because I know it firsthand and I know for sure that what I'm telling you is helpful. And here's why. If you've got an 18-wheeler plowing straight at you and I see it coming and I say, hey, you're about to get hit by a truck, does that make me a fearmonger? Or does that make me somebody who is trying to save you from a reality that's waiting for you right now and I want to save you from it? I think you know the answer to that, but let's dig in a little deeper just to make sure I'm being fair because if I'm being fearmonger, I need to know about it, right? But I think that after you hear what I have to say today, you're going to know which side it falls down on. Let's dive into this hornet's nest face first. Let's go. So review time today is just a little bit different to say the least. Most of the reviews I get are positive and they're great, but I had two back to back that accused me of almost the same thing. Not that that makes me suspicious at all, but I digress. I want to read them to you because I'm not afraid of bad reviews and I want honest reviews. And so I want to address what these two people had to say so that we can really, give it to the time of day, make sure we're being fair, and I can help you understand why you might think I am a fearmonger. Let's read. First one says, first timers be cautious. I've had two beautiful and medicated hospital births and came here to find Christian encouragement for embarking on advocating for myself in a natural birth this round, but in a hospital setting. I listened to episode 96 and that will be my last. While there is truth, hello, while there is truth to the details of a hospital birth protocol and objectives, it's delivered with so much fear mongering and a lack of sharing how you can advocate for yourself to choose otherwise. I'm thankful I didn't hear this as a first-time mom because I would have been terrified of a hospital birth. The end felt like a sales pitch for a home birthing course, which is maybe why a hospital birth was made to sound terrifying. Tread lightly, mamas. Don't worry, I'm going to address all this stuff as we go. I'm not going to address it right now. I'm just going to read them. Second one says, lots of fear mongering. As a pregnant labor and delivery nurse, I tried to listen to a couple of episodes of this podcast, but I won't be able to listen to any more. Specifically, the episode about Cytotec had a lot of out of context information and did not explain the medical indications or uses of the drug well at all. If I wasn't a nurse in this field, I would have been terrified after listening to this episode. I feel like there is lots of bias and fear mongering in this podcast. I do love how it's centered around God's plan and His sovereignty in the birthing process, so that's why I gave 2 stars instead of 1. But I'll definitely be warning my friends to use discernment before listening to this podcast. Okay, the reason I was laughing is because on both of those, whether they realize it or not, they did acknowledge that there's a lot of truth here. Okay, and I'm gonna address each issue that they listed in their reviews, so don't worry. But just understand that I can tell, well, they both admitted they're new listeners, and that's fine. But at one point in my life, I could have written both of those reviews. Maybe not the one about having 2 medicated births, but I would have thought just like them. Okay. I would have heard, when I heard about Cytotec, I'd be like, yeah, but you didn't tell all this and that and the other. I would have said that. But now, nearly 20 years down the road, I've got a little bit different perspective. And so I want to talk to you about that today because y'all, I get it. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has an opinion. And 2 negative reviews, that's fine. 20 negative reviews, that's fine because I know I'm going against the grain. Okay, so I'm used to that. This is not a new development. I understand that that is going to create some pushback. The negative reviews do not scare me. They are a sign of how deep the brainwashing in this culture for supporting a system that's out to, well, it's not out for your good, shall I say. That's how deep it runs. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised it's taken this long to get pushback. I remember thinking 6 months or so, am I talking about the right things? Because everybody's just agreeing with me. But it takes a while. It takes a while before, because at first you're going to get the people who really resonate with what you have to say. And then it's going to take a while. Once you get a little bit bigger, then you're going to start getting the people that are like, you're crazy. And I'm ready for it. Okay. But lest I think I am alone, let me just say that Jesus spoke nothing but the truth ever. He never sinned, but he was called a liar and he was killed for telling the truth. Now, I'm in no way comparing myself to Jesus at all. I'm far from being on that level, obviously. Okay. But if the only perfect man who ever lived received negativity and he received persecution, all I can say is I can't be surprised when I receive it in my imperfection, and I'm in good company. Because my whole goal here is to move the focus off of worldly solutions and put it on godly solutions. I don't always do that perfectly, but from the feedback I get overall, I know that for the most part, after 2 years, that is what's happening. Reviews like this totally miss the point. The antidote to fear is submitting to God's will that we find in his word. And funny that these 2 reviews were followed by someone, the very next review that I'll read in a future podcast, who said the podcast helped them get out of fear by focusing on God. And that's the whole point. And I'll read that review, like I said, in a future episode. But for now, let's just look at these 2 negative reviews. Usually the way that you know that you're doing something right is by touching a nerve, because people are starting to react. You've hit something that is a sore spot. And so these reviews are actually encouraging. An L&D nurse, labor and delivery nurse, is telling me I'm wrong. Well, of course they think I'm wrong. If they didn't think I was wrong, they wouldn't be working on labor and delivery. They are as bought in as I used to be. I would have, like I said, I would have left that exact same review maybe 15 years ago. If you'd made me listen to my podcast when I worked in labor and delivery, if somebody else had been doing my exact podcast and you'd made me listen to it, I would have bit back too, because I had not realized the truth yet. Would I have thought that what I was saying, or what the person in my supposed shoes was saying, was fear mongering back then? Yeah, I would. Would I have thought my episode about side attack was out of context? Would I have thought there was a medical indication for it? Yep, sure would. Would I have been wrong? Yep, I sure would. And until I read the book, Born in the USA, which if you're watching on YouTube, I'll show you, it's going to be backwards and it might be a little blurry, but until I read this book right here, which was, I don't know how long into my journey, it was after I had left labor and delivery, but not even right after I got out, I didn't realize how wrong I was. The good thing is, most of the people she might warn not to listen never would have listened to this show anyway. Let's just be real. Because again, if you told me to listen to this back in before I'd woken up to reality, I wouldn't have listened. I'd have been like, you're crazy. I'm not listening to that. You know, there are some things that you should actually be terrified of. And a drug like side attack is one of them. Because once it's in, and here's why, okay? Can it do some good? Maybe. But here's the problem with drugs like side attack, drugs like Cervidil, drugs like prostaglandin gel. Once they're in there, you cannot get them back. And so if your uterus, which you won't know until it happens, that's the problem. If your uterus is one of the ones that's going to overreact to that medication, it's a very scary time. And you might very well end up in an emergency C-section that never had to happen if you hadn't let that drug get into your body, if you had just waited on God. Now, do I know there's occasionally a reason for a medical induction? Yes. But there are drugs and there are ways of doing things without putting in drugs like Cytotec, Cervidil, prostaglandin gel, any of these kind of things that once they're in, well, I'll take that back. Cervidil, it's like it used to be, you can get that out. But Cytotec, prostaglandin gel, you can't. Once it's in there, it's there. And whatever flows after that, it's too late. Okay? And if you have not seen this firsthand as a labor and delivery nurse or someone who is in that environment, you don't know it's real. You don't know it's a big deal. So yeah, these bad reviews don't scare me. We're going to talk about them. And I just already hit one of those points right on. But maybe the ones who left these reviews, I hope they'll listen. They probably won't, because they already said they're not going to anymore, and that's fine. But for everybody else, let's learn why I present this podcast the way that I do. Got a little off on the side effect thing already, forgive me. But that was just one example of it's not out of context. In fact, it's completely in context. My favorite line of one of the reviews was, while there is truth to the details of hospital births, protocol, and objectives. Well, see, that's all you really need to know. That part right there is all. Would you rather me tell you that birth doesn't hurt to avoid fear mongering? Or should I tell you that, yeah, contractions are intense and you need a repair? Not repair, to prepare. Would you rather me let you walk into a hospital and get zero informed consent about side effects? Because guess what? If you just walk into there and they just start it, they're not going to give you fully informed consent. They're just not. Would you rather me give it to you so that you have the information, or would you rather hear actual information? Excuse me, I worded that all wrong, but would you rather walk in with no information, or would you rather hear actual information from the actual drug insert like we did a few weeks ago? Because that's not me. That's what the drug insert says. That's what the people who manufacture it wrote in their insert. Is that taken out of context? It's there. And by the way, if you think it's taken out of context and you want to go see the full thing, I gave you the link to go look at the full drug insert. So that's completely in context. That's like saying I took a Bible verse out of context, but you don't have the Bible in your hand to open it up and see for yourself. You can go look at it yourself. Go back to that episode, find the link, go read it yourself. I can teach you how to advocate for yourself in a hospital environment. That was one of the points that was made, that I don't teach you how to advocate for yourself. I don't think that's true. I have talked about those things. But here's the thing. Once you start advocating for yourself during labor, you've already had the course of your labor altered, whether you realize it or not. You can't labor effectively while you're advocating, because the wrong part of your body is turned, or not your body, the wrong part of your brain is turned on. Because if you're advocating, your brain is engaged in a way that causes those other parts of your brain that really need to be active to be disengaged. Labor is a process of surrender, and it's involuntary activity, and advocating for yourself turns that off. I can teach you how to do it, yeah. But what you're missing is that even in learning how to do that, your labor is being affected. You don't have to realize it, you don't have to admit it, but it is. So you had 2 beautiful unmedicated hospital births. Congratulations. It is possible to have an unmedicated birth at the hospital. But I do notice that you didn't say natural, which is good, because there is nothing natural about a hospital birth. You might have it unmedicated, but it's not natural. It's not as birth should be. She listened to episode 96. That episode was the reality of hospital birth. And that episode was based on facts and evidence, as she admitted. But my question is, did she listen to episode 95 or 94? Because those were equally factual. Countless moms have changed their birth story for the better by learning from my experiences, because I have been in the belly of the beast. I was part of it. And you can say I take it out of context. You can say I don't prepare you for it. But I see that the best way I can prepare you for it is, if there's any way in the world you can not go into it, don't. And if you do go into it, don't just submit to everything that they want to do. And that is what we talk about here. The women, this woman had a beautiful birth, perhaps. But she will never know how much more beautiful her experience could have been if she had given birth in her home that God provided her, with her family that God gave her, and the peace and quiet and familiarity of the life that God gave her. And likely, because of how she responded in this review, she would never even consider it, somehow despite me. Yet it's not me that's getting hurt. So for those of you who are wondering, is that review true? Let's talk about why I present the birth system the way that I do. This will be a review for most of you, because most of you are not new here. But I want you to know that there's a very real rationale for this, and it is all because you need to understand the reality. And everybody out here who's talking about it from the outside looking in, they've heard the stories, but they haven't seen it from themselves. I've seen it. I was it. This labor and delivery nurse, she's seen it. She is it now. She's who I used to be. And again, if you had talked to me then, I would have said what she's saying. But see, I'm on the other side now, and I see a different reality because I've seen both sides. I've seen it for years now, seeing all kinds of different stories, seeing it firsthand as both a client, patient in it, and then also as a provider in both sides of it, I have seen all angles. Okay. And so I need you to understand this reality so that you can have a chance to have the story that you deserve to have. We live in a culture that blindly trusts, and we blindly trust often that which is untrustworthy. And that is often because people don't realize the reality of what's going on. Often they don't realize it until after they've come out on the other side and realize, whoa, what just happened? That was all wrong. Something wasn't right there. My understanding of the hospital system is from being a part of it. Now, is it all that way? Well, of course not. And I'll say that the staff who are there are not out to get you. They're there doing what they truly think is best. It's just that they haven't seen the other side of it. I thought I was doing what was best too. Now I see the other side of it and I'm like, whoa, I was causing so many of the problems that I supposedly was helping you survive. Is it possible to navigate the system? Yes, but again, not truly naturally. Let me give you a little example, okay? I hope you can see the parallel I'm trying to draw here. It's an example about sin, just general sin. Can you go into a bar and not drink or be involved in the sin there? Well, of course you can. You can walk into the building. You can just be there. You can have a Coke or water or whatever. But is it harder to stay sober when you're there? Yeah, it's harder because if you're not in an environment that has those things, it's much easier to not drink those things, right? Especially if you're someone who has struggled with that in the past. Once you're in it and it's available, it's much easier to succumb to it. Is it possible you will be mistaken as someone who's drinking when you're there, even if you're not drinking? Yes. Is it more likely you will be offered drinks, even if you say you don't want to drink? Yes. Are you going to have to be on your guard to keep that from happening? Yes. So is it better to just stay out of the bar? Yeah. Because once you're there, let me try to connect the dots. Once you're at the hospital, let's say, for instance, let's say you've gone to the hospital and you want a natural birth, but birth is hard. It's very intense. And when you know the anesthesia guy is right down the hall and you hit that wall, it's real easy to just call him in. But when you're at home, it's a different kind of mentality. It's I have to do this. I can do this. I'm going to lean on God and I'm going to do this, because that's not even available. If you're an alcoholic, you don't go into a bar because you know it's there and you're afraid you might succumb to it. So you don't even go in. If you're a mom trying to have a natural labor, why on earth would you go to a place that exists just to, quote, assist you in something they don't think you know how to do on your own anyway? So you say that there was an advertisement for a home birth course at the end of the show, and maybe that's why I push home over hospital. Is that why I push home over hospital? No, absolutely not. I push home birth over hospital because I know the reality. And I push home birth course because I've seen the other ones out there and none of them cover everything that you need to know. So I just made one myself to help you prepare. And I put everything in it that I know from a labor and delivery nurse perspective, from a doula's perspective, from a midwife's perspective, and from a mom's perspective who has had a natural labor. I put in there all the things that I know that you need to know to have the best chance to succeed. That's it. I filled a vacuum that there was in the market to help moms accomplish what they're wanting to accomplish, but they're not finding the tools that they need out there. I understand the interaction of this system better than most because, again, I was part of it. And there are some decent courses out there, but most don't have both sides. They don't have the benefit of being taught by somebody who has actually worked both sides of it as a dyed-in-the-wool believer on both sides. Because when I was in the hospital, I believed it wholeheartedly. And now that I'm on the home birth side, I believe it wholeheartedly. And it's not because I can just play both sides of it. It's because I've been on the other side. I understand that side, and I would not ever choose to go back to it. So to somebody just dropping in, you might think I'm just here just to make a buck. If that's you, you'd probably laugh at my bank account. Let's just get real. Yes, I'm trying to build something here to help more and more moms and to help my family. And yes, I want to help as many moms as I can to avoid the system that I know is designed to derail their plans, even if an occasional mom manages to escape with her plan intact. But if you truly think that I'm here just to make you afraid and to make money off of you, I would invite you to start listening back at episode 1 and actually get to know me. When you start reading a book in the middle, you'll never fully understand its context. And so if you're starting the show in the middle and you're not taking the whole thing in, it's not surprising that you have the perspective that you do. But what's actually fear mongering? Making a woman think that she needs a machine or a hospital or she can't possibly give birth naturally. Making a woman think it's her fault and she's broken when her labor that wasn't ever ready to even start stalls in the middle, when it's been forced to start unnaturally, and when that same system then forces her baby to come before it's time. What's fear mongering? It's making women think that labor is so miserable and so painful and so awful that it must be numbed away. Or making women think that they can't possibly know their bodies better than a machine or someone with letters behind their name can. That's a few examples, just a very few examples of fear mongering. I'm here to help moms believe in their self, believe in their God and their God's perfect design for their body to work the way He made it to work when we work with it. And I educate women on how to work with it because our culture has caused us to forget or never know it to start with. That's why I'm here. That's not fear mongering, that's empowering. And if you are so brave that you can stand behind your keyboard and tell me without even a real name attached to it through a review that you think I'm wrong, I would invite you to come talk to me to my face. Because the reality is you won't, because you don't have the evidence to back up your perspective. You have your opinion, but the evidence does not support in any way that the hospital is better. Okay? And I'm not trying to make women afraid of it so they'll come running to me. I'm trying to make women aware of it so they will run to their God, who designed them, who loves them, and who wants them to have His best. That's the truth. Those reviews, neither one of them had identifying marks on it. Because, see, in this day and age, you can leave your negative review and you can badmouth people and you can impact their listenership if that's what you want to do. But in the meantime, it's moms that are suffering. And for as long as I can, I'm going to be here helping the moms that want to get the help, realize the truth, go to what God intended for them to have. Because if you'll go back to Genesis, when God first put in marriage and He first put in childbearing and all those things, I don't see any hospitals there. I don't see any machines. What I see is two people who loved their God, who made some mistakes but still leaned on Him. And I see that the first couple of verses of Exodus, which is just the second book of the Bible, one of the first people that we see who are following God's commands rather than man's to support women in doing what they were made to do is midwives. That's what I see. In the people back then, it's only a relatively new thing that we've been taught that we need to run to a hospital to have our babies. That is a very, very new thing. Very new, like last 150 years. And by the way, for those of you who are leaving these reviews and are advocating for that system, that whole campaign was based on lies and smears. And if you go back and study it, it's dark and it's ugly. And that is not a thing to defend. And now we have convinced generations of women to run to a system that is not designed for their good. Does it have a place? Occasionally, yes. But is that place for all women? No. In fact, it's not the place for most women. And I'm here to help prepare those of you who know that, who have realized that, and who want something better. So to you beautiful mamas who show up every week and learn, and who show up in the Facebook group and encourage one another, I thank you as always. You all encourage me. I've had countless stories of you telling me how your entire story changed because of the things you learned and the empowerment that you gained through it, about how much closer your relationship is with God now, because you have realized where the truth comes from. And I'm so happy for you all. And to those of you who left the negative reviews, I hope you'll stick around, because I think over time, you might just change your perspective. I'll see you guys back here next week.